issues that matter to you. No jargon, no confusion, just real conversations about money, your money. So join me every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on WESN for Dollars and Cents.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man
is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
WESN.
Good morning and welcome to AM Prime on WESN. I am Takia Thompson, your host for our Motivational Monday show. As usual, we begin this morning with positivity with our Morning Boost segment, but also we hope you had a great and productive weekend. Moving. Sometimes life gets the best of us. The routine may feel repetitive, but persistence always looks ordinary before life changes. Your current situation is a chapter, not the whole story. Growth is always visible. Sometimes it's not happening, but it always is happening quietly in your resilience. Keep preparing for the life that you want, even before it arrives. Now, let's dive into our mindset aspect segments. International best-selling author, award-winning podcast host of The Purpose and The Purpose-Driven Entrepreneur, Jay Shetty, introduces a 7-step method designed to master negative thoughts and become undefeatable. Through cognitive techniques and practical habits, viewers learn to recognize challenge and reframe internal narratives for emotional freedom. Let's take a look at this video.
Your thoughts are not always true. Challenge them. Your thoughts are not always reality. Don't accept them at face value. When doubts appear, don't assume, investigate. When fear whispers, don't bow down. Look closer. When negativity rises, don't believe. demand proof. Negativity thrives on blind acceptance. Negativity grows when you don't fight back.
The #1 health and wellness podcast.
Jay Shetty.
Jay Shetty.
The one, the only Jay Shetty.
Hey everyone, welcome back to On Purpose. I'm so glad you joined me. And if you've not yet subscribed, click that button so that you never miss an episode. It's astounding to me, the community that we're building together. And when you subscribe here, you're not only supporting this show, you're actually starting to support yourself. You're saying, this is a priority, this is important to me, I want to invest in my growth. Today's episode is all about what to do with those negative thoughts. If you're someone that experiences intrusive, negative, difficult thoughts, this episode is for you. If you're someone who walks out of a meeting and can't stop thinking about something negative that happened, or you were out with friends last week and you can't stop thinking about a moment or an experience that felt awkward or uncomfortable, this episode is for you. And if you're someone that finds yourself just caught in a negative spiral, this episode is for you. I'm gonna give you a 7-step method to actually master your thoughts and negativity. I want you to become unbeatable, undefeatable when it comes to negative thoughts. Because here's the reality. Negative thoughts will always arise. They'll always appear. No one in this world can never have a negative thought. But you can make sure that a negative thought never controls you. You can win the battle and win the fight, and that's what we're doing today. Step 1 is you have to learn to recognize and acknowledge your thoughts. All of us have so many thoughts every single day, but we're not always sure about the systems. We're not always sure about the patterns. And I want to share a spiritual truth with you that is so important. You are not your thoughts. They're just visitors passing through your mind. You are not your thoughts. They're just noise, not the truth. You are not your thoughts. They're temporary, not permanent. Notice them, but don't let them define you. Name them, but don't give them your power. Watch them, but don't give them your identity. The moment you recognize them, they lose their grip. The moment you name them, they start to dissolve. The moment you see them clearly, you set yourself free. Negative thoughts are not facts. Awareness is your power. Negative thoughts are not your reality. Awareness is your protection. Negative thoughts are not who you are. Awareness is your path to emotional freedom. It starts with being aware of our thoughts. Aware of which ones appear often, which ones don't appear enough. Aware of what we say when we first look in the mirror. Aware of what we say when things are not going well. How many of you are the quickest to judge yourself and critique yourself, but the first to congratulate someone else? Are you that person who, when you make a mistake, you'll be really harsh and beat yourself up, but when someone else does, you're there to be empathetic and kind and compassionate? We're so quick to judge ourselves and so quick to celebrate others. It's so important we become aware of these patterns that we all experience so that we can begin this breakthrough. So I wanted to keep repeating that, and I want you to say it out loud. I am not my thoughts. You are not your thoughts. They're just temporary clouds floating across the sky of your mind. And neuroscience proves it. Simply labeling emotions, naming them, activates the prefrontal cortex and calms the amygdala, reducing emotional overwhelm. Think of negative thoughts like pop-up ads, annoying, distracting, but not permanent or meaningful. You can just hover over them and press the cross and they're gone. The problem isn't that they appear. It's that we believe them. Now imagine you're on your desktop or your laptop and all these screens of pop-ups just start turning up. You only get lost in them when you start filling out the form, when you get tricked into clicking on one. We don't want to double click on a negative thought. We want to allow it to pass through like a pop-up or a cloud. There's a beautiful Zen story which talks about two monks watching the sky. Dark clouds rolled in and one monk cried, "It's a bad omen." The other simply said, "Clouds come and go." The clouds didn't change, only their reaction did. Your thoughts are clouds. Notice them, name them, but don't become them. Here's an experiment I want you to try, a habit, a practical tip that I want you to give a go. Today, when you notice a negative thought, pause and internally say, "I'm having a negative thought about." Just naming it can weaken its hold. Stop saying you're a negative person. Stop saying that you have negative energy. Switch that to "I am having a negative thought about." Naming it can weaken its hold. Naming it can loosen its grip. And naming it gives you back the power because you're now aware. Here's a habit. I want you to set 3 thought alert reminders, morning, midday, evening. And when it goes off, pause for 30 seconds to scan your mind and jot down any negative thought patterns that you see. When you start to understand the patterns, you have the power. Remember that. When you understand the patterns, you have the power. Because now when that pattern emerges, you can do step 2. Step 2 is challenge your negative thoughts. Now that you know that there's a pattern, let's say you always feel negative when you first wake up in the morning. Let's say you always feel negative just before going to bed. Maybe you feel negative just before you walk through the door of the office. Right? We have certain times in our day when negativity is really loud. Now that we're aware of them, we have to learn to challenge them. Not in the moment, because that time we need to focus on work, focus on sleep, focus on waking up. We need to challenge them when we become aware of the pattern in our spare time. Right now, that's what you're doing. I want you to remember this. Your thoughts are not always accurate. Question them. Your thoughts are not always true. Challenge them. Your thoughts are not always reality. Don't accept them at face value. When doubts appear, don't assume, investigate. When fear whispers, don't bow down. Look closer. When negativity rises, don't believe. Demand proof. Negativity thrives on blind acceptance. Negativity grows when you don't fight back. Negativity wins when you don't question it. Dig deeper. Beneath fear, you'll find clarity. Beneath doubt, you'll find truth. Beneath noise, you'll find your power. One thought challenged is one chain broken. One thought challenged is one burden lifted. One thought challenged is one step toward freedom. Not every thought you have is true. In fact, negativity loves to wear the mask of reality. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, has long shown that challenging irrational thoughts reduces anxiety and builds emotional strengths. Ask yourself, is this thought a fact or just a fear? It's really important to know, is this thought a fact or is it just a fear? So the next time you catch yourself spiraling, ask yourself, what evidence do I have that this thought is true? What evidence do I have that in fact this thought is not true? You're almost becoming a lawyer in your own life, learning how to negotiate, learning how to persuade, learning how to build and stand up for an argument. Because guess what? The lawyer in your mind, that critique, is winning every case. But that's because we don't know how to challenge our thought. If you think that lawyer in your head is on your side, you lose every case, you lose every battle. But when you realize that you're not your thoughts, you're allowed to have a defense, you're allowed to have a case, that's when you recognize that you don't need to accept a thought that has no evidence. And what you want to do is present the counter evidence to your mind systematically. Here's a daily habit to make it easy. Create a daily thought challenge. Each evening, write one negative thought from your day. Challenge it with evidence and rewrite it into a more balanced, empowering statement. When you go to bed that way, you'll wake up with more energy and naturally feel disconnected from the weight of that thought. Step number 3 is reframe your thoughts. My favorite quote is from Wayne Dyer. He said, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. Your thoughts are a story, but here's the best part. You can write the next line right now. Actually, you get to choose the title of the next chapter right now. You get to write the next few pages right now. When you change the story, you change the feeling. When you change the perspective, you change the power. When you change the lens, you change your life. Negative stories exhaust you. Positive reframing energizes you. Negative thinking shrinks you. Positive reframing frees you. Small changes in your viewpoint can lead to big changes in your vision. Let me give you an example. You're running late to work because someone cut you off in traffic. You get to work and now you're telling everyone that story of that person who cut you off in traffic. What you forgot to mention was the person who smiled at you. What you forgot to mention was the fact that you still got to work on time. What you forgot to mention is that you survived. Nothing bad happened. The other side of the story was draining. Makes you feel rushed, makes you feel overwhelmed, makes you feel stressed. Just reframing. It's not that it didn't happen. It's that you're still here, right? Positivity doesn't mean I ignore things that happened. It means I see everything about what happened. The fact that I'm alive, the fact that I'm here, the fact that I'm on time, the fact that I'm smiling at someone, someone's smiling at me, that simple connection. How you frame an experience changes everything about how you feel it. Let me say that again. How you frame an experience changes everything about how you feel it. If you frame an experience as negative, you feel bad. If you frame an experience as useful, insightful, powerful, fulfilling, it transforms you. Research shows that reframing negative experiences improve resilience and overall well-being. It's not denial, it's conscious perspective shifting. Two people can face the same storm. One sees destruction, the other sees renewal. I really love this idea that two people can experience the same thing, but react to it differently. It is up to you to choose to reframe a narrative, reframe an experience. And it's all about practice. The first time you try and do this, it's going to be really hard. By day 5, it's going to be easier. By month 5, you're going to be flying and flowing. You will be unbeatable. A negative experience or a negative thought won't be able to control you because you've practiced reframing an experience. That person who you feel doesn't care about you, they just lost a great friend. That person you feel doesn't value you, they just disconnected from a gift in their life. We have to reframe and understand differently the experiences we go through. Here's an experiment. Today, when a small inconvenience happens, pause and reframe. How could this actually be working for me? And here's a daily habit. Start a reframing jar. Each night, write down one negative event and intentionally reframe it in a neutral or positive light before placing it in the jar. Watch your mindset shift over weeks. You'll literally feel yourself rewiring your brain to notice different things. Our day feels bad because we notice the bad more than the good. Our day feels hard because we notice the difficult more than our determination. Our day feels long because we notice the hardship more than we do the beautiful relationships. Shift your perspective. Step 4 is practicing mindfulness and meditation. Take a moment to pause and breathe deeply right now. Mindfulness means simply noticing your present experience. Let thoughts pass without holding on to them. Pay attention to your breath. It's your anchor. Meditation doesn't require perfection, just consistency. Practice letting go of anything you're holding on to. Quieting your mind, even briefly, can reset your entire day. It's the oldest wisdom in the book, but taking a few breaths can reset you. When you're nervous, when you're anxious, when you're stressed, when you have negative thoughts, your breath is faster, shallower. As soon as you breathe, you make it deeper, slower, and you regain your power. When you're moving fast, think about it. If you're driving a car really fast and something comes out in front of you, it's really hard to maneuver around it, right? So when a negative thought comes at you, if you're already moving really fast, chances are you're going to collide. And that's what we experience every day, collisions with our negative thoughts. But imagine if you were driving a little bit slower. You could slow down just ahead of that disruption and swerve comfortably, coolly, calmly. That's what regular mindfulness practice allows you to do. Mindfulness is about being where you are, not racing ahead, not clinging to the past. Research from Kabat-Zinn shows that even short, consistent mindfulness practices can reduce anxiety and depression significantly. Mindfulness is like clearing a cluttered desk. You create space for clarity. So here's the experiment I want you to do. Set a 5-minute timer today. Focus only on your breathing. When thoughts wander, gently return attention to your breath without judgment. And for every 1 hour, stop and breathe deeply for 1 minute. And watch how you start getting the pace to actually maneuver and shift. Number 5 is something we don't do enough of. Engaging in joyful activities. You can't always avoid difficult emotions, but you can decide how long they stay. You can't choose every result, but you can choose what you learn from it. You can't always avoid setbacks, but you can decide how they shape you. You can't choose others' perceptions, but you can choose your own self-worth. You can't erase past experiences, but you can choose how they influence your future. You can't control the world's chaos, but you can choose to create your own peace. Studies show that regular engagement in enjoyable activities lowers depression significantly. Doing what you love isn't indulgence. It's essential maintenance for your mental health. So here's what I want you to do today. Spend at least 15 minutes doing something you genuinely love. Having your coffee, reading, gardening, dancing, painting, whatever it is. And notice your mood before and after. Schedule a daily joy episode. Block out 20 minutes each morning or evening just for an activity that nourishes you. Right? Think of it like a joy meeting or a joy episode. Being able to do that allows you to tap into joy and reduce stress. This is such an important part because ultimately negativity and positivity are both contagious. Have you ever met someone and you just feel positive? Have you ever done an activity and you just feel positive? Well, you can be that person. That person wasn't born that way. They're practicing. They're developing that skill, and you can as well. Step number 6 is looking after your temple, your body. Your body isn't separate from your mind. It's the vehicle that carries your spirit. Regular exercise reduces depressive symptoms by up to 30%. Hydration boosts brain function. Sleep resets your emotional baseline. It's simple, but it's foundational. A Zen student once asked his master, "How do I attain enlightenment?" The master replied, "When hungry, eat. When tired, sleep. When sad, move." Caring for the body wasn't secondary. It was sacred. I also love this idea because when we're out of food, we eat. When you're out of growth, you choose to grow. So today's experiment is go for a 20-minute walk today, for a gentle stretch, and pay attention to how your mind feels afterwards. If you want to boost your day, it's as simple as this: 7 hours of sleep, 8 glasses of water, and 15 minutes of movement. Go on that walk, get outdoors, and watch how your mood and mind change. And finally, number 7 is limiting our exposure to negativity. I was recently on a podcast and I was talking to Tinks, and we were talking about this idea of how the challenge today is our news finds us, we don't find our news. Before, people would open up the newspaper to see what the news was. Today, you're on social media trying to figure out what your friends are doing, and you're reading about something happening halfway across the world. You're about to send a message to a family member, and someone sends something in the group chat, which is about a news update. We no longer find our news. Before, you were primed, you were prepared. I'm going to look at the news to see what's happening in the world. Today, you're trying to connect, you're trying to show empathy, you're trying to love, you're trying to have fun, and you're finding the news at that time. It's extremely confusing and draining for your mind, which is looking for love and being overloaded by other information. No, I'm not saying the news is not important. I'm saying it's important to be informed, but our mind is better when we've chosen what we're doing. If your mind knows you're watching the news or about to pick up a newspaper or about to read a news site or a newsletter that you love, the mind is prepared and primed. You can't avoid negativity, but you can look for the good around you. You can't stop people from criticizing you, but you can decide which feedback matters. You can't erase stress completely, but you can find healthy ways to handle it. You can't avoid every bad day, but you can appreciate the good ones. You can't stop difficult moments, but you can decide what they teach you. You can't control others' attitudes, but you can protect your own mood. You can't always avoid negativity, but you can choose how much you allow in. Studies show 56% of adults report higher stress due to constant news and social media consumption. Remember, you are what you consume. It's important to create a digital diet, a digital fast, and a digital detox, and a digital plan to support the mind that you want. One of my favorite Zen stories is when a student asked their teacher, "How do you remain at peace despite the chaos of the world?" The master smiled and said, "I simply don't argue with reality. Most of our tension is created because we want things to be different. When in reality, when we accept what's happening and we work to make them different, we improve. When you want something to be different and when you work for something to be different, it's two different experiences. When you work to make something different, you feel closer to the solution, so the problem feels smaller. Whereas when you want something to be different, you're standing away from the problem and it feels bigger and uncontrollable. If you've been really overwhelmed recently, take a 24-hour media detox today. No news, no social media, no negativity. And observe how your mind feels. And build a positivity shield. Limit news to one short daily check that you define. Look at the news at one time in the day. Mute negative accounts and deliberately subscribe to uplifting podcasts or inspiring content and unsubscribe from the others. I hope this 7-step ritual and method creates less negative thoughts and, more importantly, control over the ones that do get through to you. Thank you so much for...
Thank you so much, Jay Shetty. That was that clip from Jay Shetty giving you the 7 steps on how you can reframe internal narratives and for emotional freedom. Now we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we have more engaging conversation, so stay with us.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Welcome back. The Association of Denominational Boards of Education recently met with the Ministry of Education to discuss issues and seek solutions. Let's talk more about this in our What's Happening segment. From teacher shortage and vacant administrative posts to concerns over student discipline, special needs support, and a lack of furniture, denominational schools across Trinidad and Tobago are facing a number of serious challenges. This morning, we speak with the CEO of the Catholic Education Board of Management, Sharon Mangru, to better understand the state of the education system, the impact on students and teachers, and what needs to change moving forward. Good morning, Ms. Sharon.
Good morning, and let me correct this one time.
Yes.
I am no longer the CEO of the Catholic Education Board of Management. I am the chair of the Association of the Denominational Boards of Education since August. Okay. We've had a new CEO at the Catholic Education Board of Management, Father David Kahn.
Lovely. Thank you for that clarification. So congratulations on that. With the overview of the recent meeting between, the association and the Ministry of Education, what were the main concerns brought to the table?
As mentioned earlier, firstly, I think the framework within which we operate, the denominational boards are there because there's a mandate through the Education Act that all assisted schools must be managed by a board. And that board acts within the general directives of the minister. And so while there are always issues that we face with managing schools, we needed to meet directly with the minister to talk about those issues and to understand his directives for managing the education system. So issues, staffing issues. Staffing issues are always the big thing, that issues that impact directly on our students. So making sure we have teachers in the classroom, making sure that the teachers are motivated to work, making sure that there's stability, and then things like furniture for the children to be comfortable. And of course, that the special needs education, being sure that we take care of the individual learning needs of students.
So we're going to just touch a bit more on the teachers one before we get into the others. You mentioned making sure teachers are in the classroom. Now, that was one of the biggest issues highlighted. What or how severe is the situation currently within, the denominational schools?
It is very severe. Denominational primary schools comprise almost 3/4 of the nation's primary schools. And in those schools, at this time, we have somewhere in the vicinity of 230 vacancies. That means that there are students who have not had teachers in the classroom, some for the entire year, some for more than a year. In some schools, we have more than one vacancy, so that there may be 2, maybe even more classrooms in which there is no teacher. Now, obviously, if we go through the trouble of employing one teacher for each classroom in a primary school, and there's a teacher missing, something is not happening. So that even though there might be teachers throwing an eye on students, sometimes there are substitute teachers that can be sourced, sometimes not. It means that our children are not getting the quality of education that they deserve.
And within that quality, can you expand a bit and, just let us know what impact does that or not having the teachers in the classroom have on the learning outcomes and even the classroom stability for the students?
So we need to look at what do children learn in school. Now, a lot of attention is paid to the examination and how the children score in math and English and creative writing and so on. But our children learn far more than that. Our children learn social skills. They learn how to behave in relation to other children in the class. They learn how to manage their own behavior, how to manage their emotions. They learn what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. They learn how to look out for each other, how to take care of each other, and how to be taken care of. And when there's no teacher in the classroom for the entire day, children, yes, they focus, they may continue. The teacher next door might set work for them. They might get absorbed into another classroom, but they miss out on learning some of these skills. And I think that is where we are seeing indiscipline happening. A lot of countries have reported increase in discipline in classrooms after the COVID lockdowns, because children weren't in touch with each other. They weren't in community settings. They were at home.
And one of the concerns I will also mention is about, the teaching service for commission's recruitment process. Where do you believe the system might be falling short where that is concerned?
And a couple of years ago, the Teaching Service Commission changed its policy for recruiting teachers. Previously, teachers were recruited by the boards, and when I say recruited, people submitted applications to the boards all through the year, basically. The boards would assess the qualifications in keeping with the criteria that they have set for assuring the preservation and denominational character of the schools. And they would then inform the Ministry of Education that these people are suitable. We believe these people can work with our schools. The ministry would then do, between the ministry, the Teaching Service Commission, they will do the assessments that they had to do. And then they would let us know that these people are suitable, these people are qualified, and we are willing to appoint them. The commission changed that, and they determined that they will only accept applications for teaching directly in response to an advertisement that they put out. So in 2023, they advertised. By 2024, the boards informed the commission that there were no more candidates on the order of merit list that the Commission had given to us that were suitable for assuring the preservation and character, denominational character of our schools. It was not until 2025 that the Teaching Service Commission then advertised again. And we are still waiting. We have not received an order of merit list from the Teaching Service Commission. In 2024, when I was then the Chief Executive Officer of the Catholic Board, I wrote to the Commission. At that time, there were 32 vacancies. At this time, in the Catholic Board, there are 80 vacancies. So the vacancies continue to grow. While the Commission says, yes, there are teachers who are qualified, certainly the teachers have the Bachelor of Education degree, they face interviews in ministry, but we cannot say that those teachers can assure the denominational character of our schools.
Yeah. And, also tying into that, we're hearing that short-term vacancies for maternity leave and other absences are no longer being filled. How challenging has that been for, principals and staff?
Without a teacher in the classroom, it's difficult. Now, the Ministry of Education had put in place a substitute teacher system. And so, in theory, a principal faced with the absence of a teacher short-term for, let's say, maternity leave, sick leave, emergency leave, they look at the substitute teacher list and they invite a teacher to come to fill that position. The problem is the substitute teacher list has not been working. People on the list find other things to do, or they change their mind about wanting to teach. They may have become employed somewhere, so they are no longer available. So our principals have been reporting that they remain with nobody in the classroom. So what we've been saying to the ministry is, let's work with you because we need to keep that list updated. We need to have access to teachers all the time because there should be somebody in front of a class all the time.
Yeah. And now many principals are now balancing teaching responsibilities with administrative due to staff shortages. How sustainable is that model?
It's not. Common sense will tell you that if there is a position called principal and another position called teacher, and the state pays people separately, then you need both. Now, if the principal is in the classroom because there's no teacher, and unfortunately, there are some schools in which there's more than one classroom without a teacher, and there's only one principal.
Right.
So if the principal is in the classroom, it means the principal is not attending to the work of the principal. The principal is not available for administrative work. The principal cannot meet with parents, cannot meet with stakeholders. Maybe the principal will do the administrative work when they go home, but we're talking also about the breakdown of family. So the principal is now using family time to do schoolwork. So no, it is not a sustainable model.
Yeah. And we also heard, the business operation assistants were introduced to help schools function efficiently. What has been that impact look like, and even so the non-renewal of some of the BOA contracts?
We spoke with Minister about that. Now, while the Ministry of Education is looking to update the job description for the BOAs so that they can do the work of modern administration, maybe a little more effectively, more efficiently, but it does leave the principal with a lot of work, a lot of administrative work to do on his or her own. Recently, I spoke with a principal. I had asked for him to call a meeting to do something else, and he says to me, well, I have no BOE, and I am busy. I have some questions to answer for the ministry. I have some data to provide, and it will take a while before I can get to it. And so, they are on their own doing all that administration requires. And as I've said before, some of them are also in a classroom. So the minister promised that they're working on this renewed job description and that they will not take longer than absolutely necessary.
Yeah. Another pressing issue we wanted to touch on too is that support for students with special needs, including those with autism and ADHD. What resources would you say are currently lacking in the system for these students?
Student aids. So again, now you understand the complex challenges that our teachers might be facing.
Yes.
So you're in a school where there might be a shortage of teachers because there's a vacancy, one or more vacancies, and there are children in a class that need special attention. Without a student aid, it means that the teacher has to give that attention to the child, or the teacher gives the attention to the rest of the class. It's difficult to do both. Sometimes it means that the rest of the class is disrupted, distracted, because the teacher has to be paying attention or has not paid sufficient attention to the children needing that extra help. The minister has asked, he will accept our help in identifying those schools in which student aids are needed. It is a process to have a child diagnosed, and the waiting list is long. Right, to have children diagnosed with special needs, it is very expensive to do it privately. And so this is another area in which the Association of the National Boards of Education can collaborate with the Ministry of Education to provide assistance. We could provide information that they need, almost real-time information.
And the association also expressed concern about not being consulted on initiatives such, as the Police in Schools program. Why is, the stakeholders' consultants so important to or in the education policy?
Collaboration. Yeah. We, again, as I said earlier, we work because of the Education Act. This is our mandate to work under the general directives of the minister. And so we need to know first that, not just see that this new policy is being put in place. We see it in the papers, we hear it from our principals. No, we need to hear this from the minister so we know what is intended and we can collaborate. In most cases, this is what we can do. In most cases, we're not going to object because whatever is done is normally done for the benefit of our students, benefit of the nation. But we do need to collaborate. And we are very, very willing to do so.
And would you say that ties into that communication bridge in terms of, improvements that you would like to see moving forward?
Yes. So what we really would like is a system that is put in place for communication so that it's not ad hoc. It's not when we have a problem, we try to reach out to the minister. No. What we would like is a system of maybe subcommittees that can reach out to appropriate people in the Ministry of Education. I think everybody knows that communication through the telephone with the Ministry of Education is a challenge, a really big challenge. We don't want to have to deal with that, but we need to know that they appoint persons when there are issues to be discussed, there are issues to collaborate on, that there is a systematic way in which this could be done. The Minister was very gracious. Yeah. He has identified point persons, the Permanent Secretary, the Chief Education Officer, and all the issues that we brought to his attention will be dealt with through subcommittees, and we will liaise with the Permanent Secretary, the CEO, as appropriate.
Another issue that was raised was, the shortages of furniture and resources in schools. Now, how widespread is this problem and what are schools doing to cope with it?
No, this is our history catching up with us. So, of course, you realize we were on lockdown during the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, and this means that factories were on lockdown as well. And so we are still catching up with that because you could imagine we have little bodies in the schools, furniture in use, furniture gets worn, it needs to be repaired, replaced, and we went through almost 2 years in which there was no furniture being produced. And so there's catch-up. Again, Minister identified the person that we will work with so that while they do their surveys, we will be able to provide that additional information. What it means, though, is that this can lead to reduced student intake.
Right.
Meanwhile, our principals are very innovative. And so they reach out to other places. They reach out to communities, corporate sponsors. There's the Fernandez Trust. They reach out wherever they can. Parents help to do repairs and so on. Principals, teachers do a lot to keep the schools going.
They do indeed. And along those lines, grants and late payments were also mentioned. How do delayed grants affect the day-to-day operations of denominational schools?
Okay, so, we keep hearing money is a problem. Yes. Money, there was a time when it was not, but it is. Money is a problem. There are several grants, several categories of grants that are paid to the schools. Remember, the schools, while they're owned by the denominational boards, they the Ministry of Education is allowed to manage the schools, to place students, teachers, and so on in the schools. There is no rent paid to the boards. What the ministry does is take care of items such as paying for the cleaners. So grants include the cleaners grant. This is the biggest one that we have problems with, because that grant is used to pay the salaries of the cleaners. When it is late, we have to find money somewhere, because you must pay people their salaries. Right? There are other grants, and of course, when you find that money somewhere, if it's a loan, you're going to be paying interest on it. And so the boards have problems as well. I can tell you in the Catholic Church, for example, where people had access to Mass on TV, many people did not make it back into the physical churches. But if you don't, then you're not put in collection. And this is what we use, to supplement running schools and so on. There are other grants for sanitation and maintenance. There are things in the secondary schools, paying, again, ancillary staff. There would be buying what they call running supplies, buying books and paper, paper books, photocopy paper, ink for the copying machine, and so on. So the day-to-day running of the school is going to be impacted. Yeah. Again, what you have is innovative principals, teachers. Okay. So the schools that are lucky enough to have working alumni associations, past pupils, corporate sponsors. But we need systems that work, because it can't always depend on these ad hoc ways of providing the resources that are needed to manage a school. What we said to the ministry is, listen, we know that you're going to be facing issues. Ministry does not generate its funds. It gets funds from the Ministry of Finance, and they depend on when they get the releases. But let us know, because forewarned means that we will be forearmed. If we know that a grant is going to be late, give us an idea of when, so that when you face the bank, you have information you could go to the bank with. Again, communication.
Yes. And we know that, despite the challenges, denominational schools continue to perform strongly academically and in extracurricular activities. What do you think has helped maintain that standard?
Shared values. And, by choosing people who, as we say, can assure the denominational character of the school, we are selecting teachers who share the values of the denominational school. And in most cases, those values have to do with how we treat each other, how we treat the children. So you would find less happening in a denominational school in which teachers work exactly to the terms and conditions of their contract. You would also find that teaching in our schools is not limited to the classroom. So this week, for example, the SDMS schools, Hindu schools, are deeply engaged in something called Bal Vikas. It's a cultural activity in which the children are learning by engaging in multiple activities. They're learning about their religion. They're learning how within their religion they interact with each other. Next week we have the Muslim community. There's Eid al-Adha. The Christian community right now is very much engaged in observing. We've come out of observing Lent, and in Lent we pay a lot of attention to works of mercy, feeding the hungry, housing the poor, and so on. And we are celebrating Easter. We're looking forward to Pentecost. So children are allowed the opportunity to learn through a very, very wide variety of ways. So whichever way the students are most comfortable learning is accessible to them.
Yeah.
And many children would tell you, you ask children who've graduated from a denominational school years later, what do they remember most about the school? It wasn't the high scores in maths or English. It was those cultural items. It was the way they felt in school, the way they felt accepted, the way they were looked after.
Absolutely. And now I felt like you touched on this already, but just to maybe elaborate a bit more, what immediate actions would you like to see from the Ministry of Education to help stabilize and strengthen, the education system?
Collaboration. We are in an age where it is recognized that we do have to work together. I think people quote very much that African thing about Ubuntu, where you hold hands and you have not been successful until the last person is successful.
Yeah.
And we have that in our culture. It is there. Let us bring that culture into the formal settings, such as the Ministry of Education. Let's work together. Let's we're not competing with each other. It's one country. It's the one country that we all love.
Yeah.
So let's work together some more.
Absolutely. And now, Ms. Sharon, lastly, what message would you like to leave with parents, teachers, and students who may be concerned about the future of education in Trinidad and Tobago?
There is nothing that we could look at and say this is what education in Trinidad and Tobago in the future is going to be like. It's evolving.
Yeah.
We are still working largely in a system that was established for us by the colonial powers. It was not established for our interests. It was established for the interests of the colonial powers. And so there is change happening. We are changing. Get on board, think it out, but think of what the difference has to be and don't fight it. There's one thing, I keep saying about parents and this SEA exam. One day it won't exist. Parents, please investigate all the schools that are available for your child and look at where your child will fit best. Denominational schools offer a lot. Do you know, I think it might be a secret that there are government schools that are high performing and that offer a lot to your children. There are government schools that offer a lot of tech-work areas. The denominational schools are not built. They don't have the physical resources to offer. There are new subject areas, new areas that your child would be interested in. Explore and look at what is in the best interest of your child and don't just fall back into what has always been done. Our schools too, denominational schools, also need to evolve because we need to always look at what more can we offer. How best can we serve our children? Because as we do that, we are building up our individual children who are the best resource in the country, but also building up the nation. And it really, really takes all of us to do it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sharon, for having this conversation with us this morning and giving us more insight on what went down and how we too could play a part in, just trying to make it better, a little easier for the students, the teachers that may be experiencing this right now at hand.
It is a pleasure.
Absolutely. Guys, we are about to take a short break, and when we come back, we have another engaging conversation, so stay with us.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
Are you driven, ambitious, and ready to earn? WESN, the content capital, is expanding, and we're looking for dynamic media sales executives to join our team. Sell powerful advertising solutions across television, digital, and social media platforms, and help brands tell their story. If you have strong communication skills, a passion for sales, and the drive to succeed, join WESN today. Send your CV to marketing@wsncc.com or WhatsApp 68-61662 and start building your future.
Hi, I am Emiliana Beechan, and I am a mental health and conflict resolution consultant. Welcome to Mind Matters, the show where we explore the intricate world of mental health and the art of conflict resolution. Join us as we hear from mental health professionals, conflict resolution experts, and everyday people who have transformed their lives through understanding and communication. Mind Matters, WESN Content Capital.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing@wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Welcome back. In our Health 360 segments this morning, we discuss a common hormonal condition that affects millions of women worldwide, undergoing a major change aimed at improving awareness and medical understanding. Polycystic ovary syndrome, widely known as PCOS, will now be referred to globally as polyendocrine metabolic ovarian syndrome, or PMOS, to better reflect the condition's broader impact on endocrine, metabolic, and mental health. Medical experts say the previous name was often misleading, contributing to delayed diagnosis and misunderstanding about the condition, which affects more than 170 million women globally. General practitioner Dr. Sasha Suknanan joins us for further discussions. Good morning, Dr. Sasha.
Good morning. Good morning.
Now, what exactly is PMOS, formerly known as PCOS, and why is this condition so common among women?
Okay, so basically PCOS, that has now been renamed to PMOS, which is a polyendocrine metabolic ovarian syndrome, as you mentioned before, is really like a hormonal or metabolic condition that affects the way the ovaries function. But it also impacts our body, well, women's body, far beyond reproduction. So men with PMOS may struggle with irregular or delayed periods, difficulty ovulating, acne, or even oily skin, excessive hair growth, weight gain, even insulin resistance, and fertility changes.
Yeah. And now, why was it important for the medical community to rename PCOS to PMOS?
So the new name PMOS better reflects the complexity of the condition. So basically, the term polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS, focused more on ovarian cysts, and many women with the condition, they do not actually have ovarian cysts, while others with the cyst may not have the syndrome. So this updated terminology that we now have, PMOS, highlights that is now an endocrine and even a metabolic disorder that is affecting the whole body and not just the ovaries.
Wow. Now, experts say that the name was misleading. I believe you answered that, but could you just, explain that a bit further for us?
So, yes. So the old name was a bit misleading before because it often caused a lot of confusion. Because patients usually believe that the condition was always related to just cysts or fertility. But in reality, PMOS now, before PCOS, could have affected and could affect blood sugar controlled, cholesterol, even heart health, mood, and emotional and mental well-being. Now, some women usually, they were even told they would not have the condition because, their ultrasounds did not show cysts.
Right.
But that's leading to misleading basically for diagnosis and treatment.
Wow. Now, what are some of these, most common signs and even symptoms women can or should look out for?
So, very common symptoms women can actually look out for irregular or delayed periods, number one. Someone missed their period, that's a clear indicator. Well, you should probably go to get tested. Difficulty becoming pregnant, weight gain, a lot of weight gain, or difficulty losing weight, in fact, acne, oily skin, hair thinning on the scalp, darkening around the skin, around, like, for example, your neck area, or even underarms, to be more specific, fatigue, and even mood changes. And not every woman will experience all symptoms, but the severity can actually vary greatly.
Yeah. And at what age does this condition usually, begin to appear?
So, symptoms often begin in, I would say, teenage years, especially around puberty. But many women are only diagnosed in their 20s or even 30s when they start to experience irregularities or in terms of their menstrual cycle or even fertility concerns when that time do appear.
Yeah. And you did mention that it does affect the reproductive health. So how does PMOS affect women beyond that reproductive health?
Okay. So apart from affecting reproductive health, for example, fertility, it affects multiple systems in the body. Hence the name, it's now metabolic and endocrine. So it is strongly linked to insulin resistance, which basically increases the risk of type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, fatty liver disease, and even high blood pressure, and cardiovascular disease as well. Now, apart from that, it could also affect our quality of sleep, energy levels, and overall just the quality of life.
Yeah. And even you mentioned before about that mental health. So how does this condition impact, mental health and even the emotional well-being?
So, absolutely. So, women with PMOS, they are more likely to experience a lot of anxiety, depression, low self-esteem. They are more concerned about their body image. So, that's in terms of the emotional well-being. In terms of symptoms such as acne, as I mentioned before, or even unwanted hair growth, weight struggles, and fertility issues, that can also affect their emotional well-being. So this is why holistic and medical and even emotional care is definitely needed when patients are diagnosed with PMOS.
Mm-hmm. And would you say, there are lifestyle or genetic factors that increase person's risk of developing this condition?
Yes, I would say that because genetic plays a major role. Mm-hmm. Because family history, a woman with a family history of PMOS or diabetes or metabolic disorders, they may be of higher risk compared to the individual that doesn't have a family history. And for example, lifestyle factors such as a poor diet, sedentary lifestyle or habits, obesity, chronic stress can actually worsen these symptoms and insulin resistance as well.
And now, how is PMS diagnosed locally? And are women in Trinidad and Tobago sufficiently aware of that condition?
So, in terms of diagnosis, it is usually based on a combination of symptoms, right? So usually you'll always start with your history taken, your physical examination, and depending on your physical examination, then we move on to clinical investigations such as your blood testing and even your ultrasounds, basically. And, that will basically give us a clear idea if the person has the syndrome or not. And I would say awareness is improving in Trinidad and Tobago, but a lot of women still need to normalize symptoms. Well, a lot of women still normalize symptoms, for example, their irregular or delayed periods, or even their severe acne. And at times, a lot of women, think that is just normal and they wouldn't seek medical advice. So I think more public education is definitely needed, although our awareness is definitely improving.
And can you tell me a bit more about the treatment options that are available for managing PMOS?
So treatment, of course, depends on our patients' symptoms and their goals. So some options that we actually offer to our patients, lifestyle modifications. So for example, diet, exercise. And of course, diet and exercise, by extension, improves weight management, as well as our insulin resistance as well. In terms of hormonal contraceptives, we usually as well recommend to regulate our periods. We also have medications as well to improve our insulin resistance, such as like metformin, which is great for PMOS, as well as, fertility treatments when pregnancy is desired. And of course, we also have treatment for the excess growth hair or, acne as well. So management is usually very individualized and it is long-term.
Lovely. And can women with PMOS still have healthy pregnancies and fertility outcomes?
Of course, absolutely. Because a lot of women with PMOS that I have known and a lot of patients, they go on to have healthy pregnancies and children. And some, on the other hand, may need a little support with regards to their ovulation and fertility treatment. But early diagnosis and proper management generally improves a more reproductive outcome.
Now, are there long-term health risks associated with untreated PMOS?
So yes, untreated PMOS can actually basically increase the risk of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, even endometrial cancer because of the prolonged irregular periods, anxiety, and even depression. So again, early diagnosis and treatment are very, very important, and they do reduce the risk when diagnosed early.
And just to go back, because you did touch on it, but maybe can you elaborate a bit more on it? The importance of, having that diet and as well as exercising, even weight management in controlling the symptoms.
Sure. So in terms of diet and exercise, it is very, very important. And I would say that's probably the biggest factor in controlling PMOS. Because even the modest weight loss can improve the hormonal balance and even your menstrual regularity, insulin sensitivity, and, fertility outcomes. So a balanced diet, regular physical activity, adequate sleep, and basically your stress management, they are very, very important in significantly reducing the symptoms and, of course, your long-term health risks.
Now, are there any misconceptions when it comes to PMOS and how, or if we can combat them, which one you'd like to combat?
So, a lot of patients usually think that PMOS usually has to do a lot with ovarian cysts, but they fail to realize that now, as it's renamed, that it usually affects the metabolic and also your endocrine. So it not only affects the ovaries, but it affects the entire body. And that's what I want patients to take away from today's session. Just remember that PCOS does not always need to have a cyst on being diagnosed with an ultrasounds, but other factors that I mentioned before, they are not symptoms to basically ignore, but symptoms to seek medical advice.
Yeah. And along those lines, what advice, would you give to a young woman who may be experiencing these symptoms but are afraid or unsure about seeking that medical help? What would you say to them?
So I would say do not basically ignore your symptoms or feel embarrassed to seek medical help. Irregular periods, persistent acne, unusual hair growth, or unexplained weight changes, weight gain, in fact, are not simple things to live with. But early medical care can make a very, very big difference in managing your symptoms, protecting your health long term, and improving fertility outcomes. So most importantly, I would say all women should know that they are not alone, and of course, the right support and treatment, your PMOS can be effectively managed.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sukranan, for coming and sharing that insightful information with us this morning. I think it's really important, as a lot of women may be dealing with these things, and like you said, it's something that is normalized. They don't think too much into it, but it's important that they ask the right questions and get that medical help pertaining to these conditions.
Yes, and that's why we are so glad that the name have, finally changed, and from PCOS to PMS. And of course, thank you for calling me online to basically share awareness, and because I think that's what the public needs. They need more education on common conditions like this.
Yes, absolutely. And just to even touch more on that awareness, how would you recommend the public to stay aware of conditions that may be happening right under our noses, but we're not too keen to know what it is?
Sure. So firstly, we start, for example, our public segments like this. For example, going to your general practitioner, asking for medical help, always asking your doctor questions. For example, you have your irregular periods, you missed your period, seek advice from a doctor. Don't always sit and say, okay, my symptoms are too, minor, of course, to not seek medical advice.
Yeah. Again, thank you so much.
Yes, no problem.
Guys, as we wrap up today's show, we hope that everything was meaningful and impactful from start to end, and you can actually take away something from it to help make your week start off to a great start, and hopefully you can keep it along with you throughout. As I always say, stay safe, stay informed, stay positive. Up next, we do have Sean Michael Small at 8 with Talking Points, so you'd want to stick around for that. And I'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye.
WESN.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really.